4 caves. Adventure enthusiast. Decided to go somewhere. Mysterious underwater caves that have not yet been fully explored. Go on an adventure. Just the thought of exploring a place for myself, a cave that no one has ever gone deep into, and that just stirred their hearts. Can't hide the excitement. However, they soon realized this dangerous underwater cave expedition would be a fatal mistake. So for today's story, we're going to start in Spain. What about Hierro in Catalonia, Spain? It's about an hour's drive from here. You can reach a town called Restaterra. It's a small town, but also for the front, famous for the beautiful beaches of the Mediterranean Sea. It is often regarded by local residents as a place of tranquility, a laid-back resort. While in Catalonia, it is a famous city in Spain, the area that Barcelona belongs to. Far from Ristat Beach, there is a man named the Underwater Caves of Covadonga Arcs. Hide it with the magnificent underwater caves that people usually imagine. Relatively small compared to his size, but its entrance is below sea level, about 7 meters deep. You must dive to this depth to see the entrance. The hole is about 2.5 meters wide. It's narrower. Therefore, extra care must be taken when entering. The internal structure of the cave is relatively simple. A space protruding from the middle, and a larger space at the end. It takes on the form of 2 rooms. The distance from the entrance to the end of the cave is approximately 80 meters, although compared to other large underwater caves, that's not a long distance. But what makes it special? Because of this cave, although the interruption has a rough map, but there is no official record, shows someone going deep into the big room at the end. To enter that big room, it has to go through a very narrow passage. And if the bottom is bad, the floats will turn violently. Visibility will drop to almost zero. Very high risk factor. Therefore, so far, it is said that no one has actually crossed it. The mysterious passage. In addition, this underwater cave has never been open to the public. There are no guided tour, so it only flows between a few local divers, rumored to be a secret place. This legend also reached Inicio's ears. The mystery of an unknown location, and that kind of exploration. Curiosity in an unexplored cave, and they were captivated. So the two began to plans to visit Covadonga Arcs. Time lapse to July 19, 2014. Ricardo Dinicio, and 2 other friends, a total of 4 people. Let's go to Restaterra together. They had a simple breakfast near the beach, then drive to Covadonga Arcs, near the cave, and park the car. Due to the fact that the cave is located in the sea beyond the coastline, they had to take a boat to the vicinity of the cave. After about 20 minutes on the sea by boat, finally arrived in Covadonga Arcs. At this time, one of the 4 people is just in case decided to stay on board. The other 3, Ricardo, Dinicio, and another friend in diving gear, start diving into the sea. They were actually in the area before. There have been many times without using the rope. Free access to the cave in the case of a cable. It surfaced several times. Most of them encountered no problems, so this time they didn't really care. Subsequently, the 3 finally found the problem in the heavy underwater cave, Covadonga Arcs. They were very excited for a while, finally arrived at this the mysterious cave of dreams. That sense of accomplishment makes them even more excited. To calm down a little, they adjusted their breathing on the boat, then dived down to the entrance of the cave about 7 meters deep. The sun can also illuminate the vicinity of the cave entrance, but the inside of the entrance is plunged into darkness and illegible. But the idea of exploring mysterious caves for yourself, make it dark for them. Not a problem at all. Since the width of the hole is only about 2.5 meters, the 3 carefully entered the cave to prevent collision with the body. But now, they made a fatal mistake. No guide sound set. Usually in cave diving, guide rope or obvious sign. It is one of the most basic safety devices because there is a lot of sediment and floating matter in the cave. At the slightest touch, visibility plummets. If there is a guide rope, even if the career goes to 0, you can still grow back out of the cave with the ropes, but without any markings. Once lost, I can no longer tell where I am. and it often takes a long time to pick service generals if the oxygen tank doesn't last that long. Life will be urgent, but they have been in the nearby small cave many times before. Cordless entry and exit, and so it erodes that risk. The three relied on the light of a flashlight. Further into the cave, soon after, they arrived at the distance from the entrance to Arcus Cave, about 20 meters away. The environment here is suitable for lobsters. Therefore, people sometimes refer to it as a lobster hole. However, from this position is a narrow passage. Dense sediment. Survey very difficult areas. No one has gone deep into it yet. At this moment, and a third friend who was traveling with us started to get scared. He believes that in the absence of a guide rope, continue into the narrow passage full of floating objects, almost equivalent to suicide. Therefore, he gestured to Ricardo and Dionisio, sent the message that I decided to return. Ricardo and Dionisio respected his decision. The third friend returns alone. However, Ricardo and Dionisio did not return together. They decided to go deeper into the cave. Their decision. Ultimately, the worst result is irreversible. Ricardo and Dionisio entered a narrower passage. As the sediment agitation becomes more and more serious, present visibility is rapidly decreasing, but they are wanted to go deeper. Driven by a strong desire to explore the unknown, overcame the unease that flashed in an instant for them, rather than a fleeting unease. I want to see a mysterious space that I have never seen before. That's all. With poor visibility, the light from the outside world is getting dimmer and dimmer. It's getting darker this week. Occasionally, they make eye contact. It seems to be asking if it is time to return, but in the end I chose to move on. When they reached a position of about 60 meters, I finally realized that I had reached my limit. The front is like a dark abyss, floating matter. They couldn't even recognize each other. They decided to retreat. But when they look back, it was a huge shock. The path they took, completely shrouded in chewed sand, turned into darkness. They realized that the way back is completely gone. In horror, they quickly fell into a state of panic. No matter how you try, when trying to confirm each other's location, all I catch is empty water. And since there is no guide rope, they have long lost their sense of direction. And it got even worse. They have very little oxygen left. It's impossible to wait for the floats to settle. In times of despair, they vaguely see there's a faint light coming in from above. Two people with few other options, instinctively swimming in the direction of the dawn, although knowing that path could be just as dangerous. But there is no other way out at the moment. They try their best to get in there. The passageway is extremely narrow. Almost let their breasts. The friction between the back and the boom can barely move forward. Can't go back and can't go back. Just keep moving forward. I hope this passage is not a dead end. Finally, they pass the end of the passage. Come to a cave located at the entrance. Maximum space at about 80 meters. Here is the structure of an underground lake. Fortunately, there is a small air pocket above the water surface. Just stick your head out of the water. Can breathe to a certain extent. This is the very thing that is said to be a large room that no one has ever entered. After the two reach the underground lake, finally take off your gear. Only keep your head above the water. And took a deep breath. My heart is filled with the joy of surviving the disaster. They survived. It has indeed arrived in this biography. Unknown space. That joy and excitement are intertwined. Even a little dreamy. They also took a few photos, commemorating the thrilling moment. In the photo, Ricardo smiled with relief, and Dionisio. It exudes a complex expression that is both grateful and uneasy. They can only wait for rescue, while confirming with each other whether it is okay. Passing the time, a few hours later, two friends waiting at sea start to feel uneasy. See Ricardo and Dionisio finally called the police around 11 a.m. for assistance. Spanish Civil Defense Secret Service diving team, after receiving the alarm, arrive at the scene quickly. According to the alarm situation and on-site judgment, rescue workers believe that too much time has passed. It is speculated that Ricardo and Dionisio's oxygen tanks also exhausted. Little hope of survival. But this time Ricardo and Dionisio, still trapped in an underground lake, They are leaning against the airbag. The stored oxygen sustains respiration. But over time, carbon dioxide builds up gradually, start poisoning. The poison gas made their toxic reaction worse. They also experience hypothermia and dehydration, headache from carbon dioxide poisoning. Vomiting and breathing difficulties become worse. Both of them are close to their limits physically and mentally. After about 5 hours, they were pushed to their true limits. The oxygen tanks are completely depleted, unable to continue using, and the path back to the cave, still blocked by the dense floating matter, barely able to see the direction. The air belt of the underground lake, it's almost filled with CO2. Almost unable to breathe normally. Ricardo, who finally exhausted his stamina first. Already connected? I don't have the strength to stick my head out of the water. He slowly sank underwater after losing consciousness. Dionisio, who witnessed this scene firsthand, fell into a great sense of guilt. But he also knew that he was not far from death. About 5 o'clock that evening, Hassan Chinese, led by the gas diving team, with other professional divers, enter the cave again together. However, they have only just dived half the distance into the cave. The field of vision is almost zero due to the dense floating objects. We have to do it before it gets more dangerous. Retreat in time. Failure to go deeper. After Hassan Chinese returns to the ground, request the Spanish National Cave. Diving teams provide additional support. Although this team includes biologists, professional divers, and fishermen, but almost no one really understands the whole detailed structure of acupoints. Finally, a biologist provides a painting that only depicts the cave, a simple map of the infrastructure. It is with this map. A full rescue operation was launched the next day. The news of the accident has been reported by the media. The next day, a large number of reporters gathered at the scene. At this moment, no one believes that the two are still alive. Despite this, James' dive team still enters the cave again. Due to picking the service part the night before, the precipitation business, slight improvement. They were able to follow the lead rope that they had been reluctant to part with the day before. Keep moving. The first diver to lead the team found a extremely narrow passage. Presumably it is Lee, the path that Cardo and Dionisio entered. The diver said after entering and leaving the channel, the passage is so narrow that it is difficult to turn around. The only option is to keep pushing forward. Finally, after the divers crossed this extremely dangerous passage, reached a small underground lake. There they were found still wearing scuba gear. Ricardo's body floating on the water. And at the edge of the lake, there's a guy clutching the boom. Squeeze your head out of the water. Singing weakly. That's Dionisio. At this point, Dionisio is on the verge of life and death. Dehydration, hypothermia, severe breathing difficulties, makes his consciousness extremely confused, even to put him back in his diving gear. It's impossible. Completed task. Divers involved in the rescue. The air in the oxygen cylinder can only be diverted multiple times to Dionisio's mouth. Let him inhale directly to maintain life. The real problem is how to put Dionisio, rescued from this tiny underground lake. He has no idea where he is. We couldn't identify the rescue team. Therefore, it is impossible to cooperate with any rescue operation. Ultimately, Hassan Chinese decided the best way. It's a friend of Jean Dionisio's. Go to the lake in person, soothing with a familiar face, and explain the current situation. They have also considered injecting sedatives, forcibly take it out. But in the end it was safer for friends to come and persuade. More reliable, that's it. On a Sunday afternoon, under the persuasion of friends, with the assistance of the diving team, Dionisio was finally brought out of the underwater cave. At the same time, the rescue team also seized Ricardo's body. After the accident, the police investigation revealed that Ricardo's immediate cause of death was hypercapnia. It's carbon dioxide poisoning. When the situation worsens, does lead to death. The survey also found that Ricardo and Dionisio, not finished diver, required professional training courses, but entered the cave without authorization. And here's the killer problem. They are not setting any leads. In the case of a guide rope, enter the cave. Precisely because there is no guide rope, they quickly lost their way. In dark and isolated caves, experiencing a life and death struggle. Finally, Their reckless venture cost one life, a person in extreme pain and fear, the tragic ending of being rescued by luck. That's the end of today's story. See you next time.